All right, that little light in the corner of the screen means we are live. Welcome everybody tuning in to the Fire Engineering ISFSI first Wednesday of the month Focus on Training Humpday Hangout. My name's Brad French. I'm a captain in Dayton, Ohio, and also serve on the board of directors for the ISFSI. I'll be one of the hosts today. We got several of our regular hosts on today. And should have some good discussion today about training props. We got a few different things that we're going to talk about, some homegrown props, some commercially available training props, and so we'll hear from all the different panelists as what kind of successes and failures that they've had within their own departments with different props, and kind of some best practices going forward for everybody tuning in as to what to check out if you're not already familiar with it. I will say, just as a disclaimer before we start, I am on duty today and on one of our busy ladder trucks in our city, and so I probably will not end up here the entire time. Hopefully so, but if I have to dive out at some point, I'll pass it off to Aaron or Steve or whoever else wants to step up and kind of run some of the questioning. So with that being said, keep in mind as we go throughout the next hour, hashtag FETalk on social media, on Twitter and Facebook. And if you've got any particular questions you want to ask the panel or some comments that you have about props, feel free to do so, and we'll kind of try to monitor that. I'll keep an eye on my phone, and the staff in the background at Fire Engineering will also try to keep an eye on those social media feeds. Sometimes we're joined by Fire Engineering Editor-in-Chief and FDIC Educational Director Bobby Halton. It does not seem that he is going to be on today. He might very well jump on at some point, and if so, we'll tag him in. But I'll say at least a little bit of what he would normally typically say, which is getting everybody geared up and excited for FDIC next year. April 8th through the 13th are the days for FDIC International 2019 in Indianapolis. Make sure you got that on your calendar from some save the date kind of stuff. Always one of the coolest times of the year for sure for those of us in the fire industry, and I'm sure if you're tuning in, you're quite familiar with FDIC. I will say just recently they produced or uploaded, I should say, the class list, the classroom session list. I'm not sure if all the hot sessions are up yet, but I did see that the classroom sessions are up on FDIC.com. So make sure that you get on there and check that out. And you can never start planning too early. So that'll be a great week, as it always is. So with that being said, let's just go down the line. We'll do some quick intros, and then we'll come back around and kind of start into our topic a little bit. So Aaron, I'll kick it off to you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Aaron Heller. I'm a captain in Hamilton, New Jersey, and I own On-Scene Training Associates. And lucky enough that I run the hot program commercial fireground operations that has some openings, I'm sure. So I'll give it the plug right off the bat for FDIC in 2019. And I'm looking forward to this. This is something I do a lot of. We build a lot of props, and we do a lot of things with props. So I'm looking forward to a good hour with it.
All right, the man in charge, Steve Pegram. You there, Steve? Chief Pegram, can you hear us? Marco? All right, so Chief Pegram was having a little bit of AV difficulties. Maybe he still is. We'll go ahead and skip past him for now and maybe hit him on the next time around. Steve Shaw.
Good afternoon. This is Steve Shaw, Fort Lauderdale Fire Rescue. I'm the Battalion Chief of Training and Special Operations. They say necessity is the mother of invention, and not having a dedicated training facility here in Fort Lauderdale, that is one thing that we've been pretty good at over the past few years, is developing a multitude of props to use. And I'm excited about talking about what we have, excited about talking about what you all have. It's going to be a good conversation today.
All right, Tony Carroll.
Hey guys, Tony here. I am on duty every day, Monday through Friday. So I may have to get called away to a meeting or something like that, but I'm sure it's not an emergency, but we'll have to make sure we can put that whatever fire out that we have to put out. So props, yeah, props are important because we have to be able to replicate as close as possible the actual scene. So yeah, we're going to talk about some stuff. We're building some stuff right now, which we'll talk about. But it's good stuff.
All right, very good. And I think Chief Pegram is still having a little bit of technical difficulty. He's kind of messaging us and saying the same. So again, we'll tag him in as he gets here. I think what we'll start with is talking about some homegrown props. So successes that you all have had within your agencies and organizations of props that maybe you made, or maybe you at least had custom designed, or maybe some of your own internal folks worked on in your training divisions or whatever, that were successful for you. I'll kind of start out with a little bit about Dayton Fire and one of the things we just recently implemented in our most recent recruit school, which is very simple, and certainly we weren't the first ones to do something like this, but we just implemented using a ceiling pole prop in our burn room, in our Class A concrete fixed facility burn room. So as opposed to just simply that muscle memory being going in, squirt the water a couple of times and then rotate nozzle positions, or go in, squirt water a couple of times and back out and let the fire regrow. Obviously, when it comes to the discussion about realistic fire training and fire dynamics and all that kind of discussion that's been going on for the past several years now, the more realistic we can make it, even in those situations where it's just simply 3 pallets in the corner of a concrete room. Yeah, we're never going to get that realism, but if we can add in certain elements to try to make that a little bit better and that experience a little bit more real life, we found that it's definitely beneficial to the students. So what we did is just essentially framed out a ceiling prop to where we could slide in a couple of pieces of drywall overhead. We took some straw and put it up on top of the drywall and kind of pulled it out from the wall a little bit. So once the fire really got going, they were getting some interesting flame effect on the underside of the prop, just like it would roll across a regular drywall ceiling, and a little bit of the fire kind of curling up over top, getting some of that straw going up on top of the drywall as well. And so when they would come in, as opposed to sometimes the classic, give it a couple of squirts and then whoa, easy, don't put the fire all the way out, letting them put the fire all the way out in its entirety. And so they get that good muscle memory of seeing that evolution all the way through. And then as soon as that's over, the truck crew immediately coming in behind them, and after a search of the room is complete, going ahead and starting and pulling that ceiling with actual drywall. And of course it has the straw up top that's now kind of smoldering or flaming and falling down on them a little bit, and so they're knocking some of that as they get it down as well. And then of course running the entire scenario through as if each student gets essentially their own room and contents fire. So after that's done and all the ceiling is pulled, scoop the place out, run the fan, bring the lights in, and all that kind of stuff. So you get fewer evolutions when you do it that way, but you get evolutions that are more close to real life. And so just that addition of the ceiling pull and ceiling prop simulator, and then of course between evolutions we just simply restock the pallets and then slide some new drywall into that simulator and reset it for the next crew. And so again, you don't get the number of evolutions, but you get that added realism to where they see what a real room and contents fire is going to be, or at least close to it, get to see that through all the way to completion. And so each nozzle firefighter kind of gets their own room and contents fire, if you will. So that's one of the things that we've done implementation-wise, just with our most recent recruit class that's been successful for us. So I want to hear what everybody else is doing as well. Aaron, what are some good props that you've done up in your neck of the woods that you've enjoyed?
Well, some of the stuff that we've done is really, it seems very basic, very simple, but it works. So that's for us, especially with limited training budgets and things like that. I've seen it in both the career side and the volunteers. There's a couple things. One of them, in my firehouse, we're fortunate. We have a mezzanine area, kind of a loft for storage that ends up being the garbage dump of the firehouse. But our building is very well built. What we did, there's a set of double doors on the second floor that leads down into our engine room. So instead of just having those double doors there, one of the guys who's really good at what he did, they welded up a wall. It's a wooden and with steel hanger wall that goes right in that double door. So we use that prop for VES. We use that prop for advancing hose lines over ladders, and we use that prop for window bailing. So we can go with a high point anchor up in our ceiling, in our truss system. Actually, we've got a good point there that they tell us we can use safely. So that's where we're using our belay line. And so for the entire department does their rope bail training, their personal escape system training out of that prop. In addition, like I said, it's easy to throw a ladder in the building because we've got the height. So we can do our VES out of there. We can do a lot of different search stuff out of there, removing victims through windows. that's been like a really cool prop that cost us almost nothing to make. We're fortunate. We have some good craftsmen in the firehouse. We've got a guy who's a great welder, and the boss actually bought us a welder years ago to work on the rigs and to do prop work. So that's been a really big one for us. One of the other homemade jobs that we
Aaron,
got,
brother, I'm sorry. I knew it wouldn't last long. I got to cut out of here. You guys have a good rest of the hangout.
All right, take a run. Be safe. So one of the other ones that we use quite a bit is we've got a forcible entry door similar to the commercial forcible entry doors you can buy, and there's a million of them out there now. But we have one that a fellow sold us years ago. They're pricey, but we had the money for that. The problem with these forcible entry doors is guys can get real comfortable in a wide open space doing forcible entry. You know, not a lot of places we go are those wide open spaces. So we just designed a tighter entry box that we put right on that forcible entry door, and now they have to work in a tight space. We made it with you enter it from a little bit above, and then it's got 2 to 3 steps going down and in. So it really simulates more of a basement prop, because we do have a lot of basements in the Northeast, and that's something that we do have to force those doors quite a bit. So that's another one of those things that we've had a lot of success with. And again, we made that one out of scraps that were laying around the firehouse, old 2x4s and some pieces of plywood, and it worked out fine, and it didn't cost us any more than the wood screws probably. So those are a couple of the things that we've been doing. I've got a long list of stuff that I'll put on hashtag and tweet out, but that's a good start. So Tony, let's move forward, and what's going on in DC with some.
Well, right now, one of our real issues we have firefighting wise are rooftop decks. We get a lot of rooftop deck fires. So right now we're running all of our companies through an in-service training evolution, multi-company evolutions centered on rooftop deck fires. So the initial company, works their way through the building, and then subsequent companies either go up the aerial ladder, or maybe they'll go inside and drop a line down. But we're really harping on the rooftop deck fires. And the crew we have here, we have a couple guys assigned to our in service, and they've built a pretty good deck up there to get us some use of that. That's good. They're also right now, the same guys that built the rooftop deck are now building a subway track simulator. So the local metro or metro subway donated a couple of rails and a third rail, the energized part, and we're building that into a simulator so it looks just like what you might find in a tunnel, so we can practice that, because we don't get to practice that as often as we would like. So that's going to be really good. That's what we're working on right now, and in the future, maybe solar panel, something like that, where we can get the guys again to really see what's going on.
Those are excellent, and you know what the cool thing about that too is, you're talking about something that, yeah, part of it's in the urban setting, but the rooftop decks are becoming something even in suburbia. We're even starting to see that in our area a little bit here and there. So that's a really good thing that you wouldn't have thought of when you were building a burn building in 1989 or 1995. So I mean, that's a really cool addition. And then of course doing the tunnel type stuff, doing the rail type stuff, it just makes total sense. So that's excellent. Steve, what's happening in Lauderdale with the specialties? I know since you don't have an academy, you're building more and more for yourselves.
Well, what you had said before about kind of utilizing the space for building of your bailout prop and stuff. I'll put this picture up here right now. We did the same thing. Is that kind of visible for the most part? We did the same thing in our bay recently, some years ago, where we had that loft area upstairs, and a couple folk took it upon themselves to build out that area into a really functional bailout prop. And we use it all the time. We use it for rookie classes. We try to do as much in-service with it every so often to get our crews through bailout, using the equipment, bailing out with your gear and such. But it became a passion project for some of our folk to put together, and it was a useful project. So you hit a nerve when you said what you did with yours, because we did kind of the same thing there. One thing that worked for us pretty well, and I'm really big on public-private partnerships and such. So one of the things we hear is our garage door prop. And this thing right here is basically, we went over to a local garage door company, and we essentially asked them, listen, we have this idea of putting garage doors up to train with our rotary saws, forcible entry, the whole 9 yards. And the initial design that I came up with, me thinking I'm some sort of engineer, they pretty much looked at it and said, well, that sucks. Let me build you one. So they basically saw, I guess they felt sorry for me because I didn't have any engineering background, and built us this really robust wood prop that holds 2 16 by 8 foot doors on either side. And the reason the garage door thing has always been something that I've held as a passion project for myself is that down here in South Florida, the most of our garage doors here are heavily reinforced in the South Florida area. You're talking about not only reinforced doors, you're not talking about the insulation and such, and the material, maybe some extra wooding on the front, paneling, decorative stuff, but you're also talking about up to 5 inches of reinforced metal behind each slat of those doors. So if you're coming at those with a saw and trying to get through them in your traditional TP cut or something, you're going to look like pretty goofy trying to do that when it doesn't budge. So we really go into details when it comes to cutting those doors and such. But this prop has proved very advantageous. Not only did it develop that relationship with that garage door company, we use it all the time. We use it with other departments because they see the value of it. So we train with multiple departments around the area. And it's just become something that overall has been very beneficial for our organization. And like you said, we have a bunch of other props as well with the door props. Some of the other ones that were mentioned. I like your idea about the roof prop, definitely something that's needed and more realistic and such. That's a couple things that's worked for us that we still use on a regular basis.
Excellent. Well, and we've had this conversation on here before, because garage doors are just one of those issues. If you watch, there's so much fire video out there of guys not really being great with garage doors, and man, if you miss that, it hampers everything. Just like anything else, it hampers everything. But boy, it becomes so evident, and it's one of those things that it's really not hard to train on and get good at, so long as you train on it and get good at it. And the garage door companies are really cool in my opinion. The ones that I've had here in my region, I've gone to them. I've said I need panels. If you've got commercial roll downs that are rolling doors, that would be fantastic. The only problem with them is they're so damn big and heavy. Sometimes maneuvering them around and getting them on the prop is tough. But that's another great option. And what we did with ours is we told them, listen, instead of us just cutting up all these pieces and leaving them lay there or doing whatever, we'll take them to the junkyard for you, and we'll give you your scrap money for it. So this way it saves you, and you don't have to take your crews to the junkyard. We'll do it ourselves. And you're getting your money, and you got rid of your scrap, and you kind of had a cleanup crew, and we got to train. So they tend to like that. So again, that private public partnership is a big deal, and those are huge. One of the things with that, just to throw it out there, that's one of the new things that I've changed, and our hot guys are talking about for FDIC this year in commercial fireground, is we've done roll down doors and we've done garage doors, and with whatever pieces we can get, that's what we use. This year we're going to ramp it up a bit and make it off a loading dock. So it's different cutting from ladders. It's different cutting off tight, narrow spaces with that rotary saw. I was very fortunate to get an acquired a couple of years ago when I had a very new Proby, and in his first week we had him running rotary saws on a ladder on a big roll down door about 12 feet up. And he said to me ever since, man, since then I've always been comfortable with a saw. So these are the types of things. One other one that we're doing, and I added it to our repertoire, was chain link fence cutting. We ran into that again. Where I work is becoming more built up with commercials, and lots of townhouse stuff is starting to go in and things like that throughout the township and the region. Well, downstairs underneath these places or in the warehouses, they're not putting up good walls. They tend to put up chain link fence now to separate units of the buildings. And we made a stretch into one day, and the nozzleman hit the fence and said they can't go any further. And next thing you know, we need a rotary saw in there. And cutting chain link fence with a rotary saw is not difficult unless you've never done it or never practiced it. And then it can throw you for a little bit of a loop until you figure it out. So it's another one, basically, and I'll throw these pictures up as well. Basically, you're almost making a goal post that you can put the chain link fence over in a roll or whatever. And that's something else you can get from the junkyard or your local fence guys that are pulling stuff out. And it's just good practice. And again, cheap practice. That's really the key. So that's where I'm at with those. Any other homemade stuff that you think we need to add to before we move on to the commercials? Either or?
Yeah, I think we're going to do this. We got a local solar panel guy who's donated a couple of solar panels with all of the stuff, the accessories that go with it. So we're going to build a. I'm thinking it's going to be portable, so we can take it out to the companies. So again, we can get these guys to see what the shutoffs look like. You know, how they can disconnect it from the roof, and really get them good solar panels, because that's really popping up pretty hot and heavy in our area. So that should be a good prop, and that'll be available, you know, to go around to the different battalions, and then those guys can kind of get it. Our academy's so busy with stuff going on, so we need to get it out of here. But that's coming. I think the next month or so we'll have that built, so we should be able to start rolling that out there.
Excellent. You know, one thing that I didn't mention too, that I know it's so common and we've all started using this, and I've seen it at FDIC and everywhere else, is just getting pallets. You know, engine company classes just using pallet mazes. It looks cheap. It looks, you know, nothing crazy about it, nothing super clean and professional, but man, it gets the job done. And there's pallet guys all over the place. Same thing with roof props, you know, so those are just little simple things. All right, so moving forward, why don't we talk about stuff that's available commercially? Obviously, we don't want to endorse brand names, and that's not our purpose on the Google Hangout. But there's a lot of good stuff out there commercially. And I know in our area, we're very blessed, I'd say, in New Jersey, that we have a lot of academies. Most counties have their own facility. Some of the local fire departments do have their own facilities. But some of them, it's a haul. The volunteer department that I ran with for years, their ride to the fire academy was 45 minutes to an hour in a rig easily. Where I live or where I work is really more of a 15 to 20 minutes. So we can take some companies out of service, get up there, and really not be killing ourselves by doing so. But guys, where are we at with the commercially generated stuff, the stuff that's coming out, the stuff we're going to see all their new gadgets and gadgets at FDIC in April, and all the stuff that's on our wish lists and our capital improvement money that we're trying to get and all that good stuff. So Steve, you want to hop up?
My first thought is going to FDIC, and when I go there, it's kind of bittersweet because you see these props, and the first thing you think of is, oh man, I wish I would have thought of that. And last time going there, seeing a bunch of the props that were out there, specifically around, you know, things that you almost take for granted, like you said before, pulling ceilings, cutting locks, beyond the traditional like forcible entry doors. You're like, ooh, gosh, I want to go back home and just make that. But sometimes it's just too not feasible to do that. You know, whether you're not a welder, you don't have the funding to buy that kind of prop or something. I know that, you know, forcible entry doors, for example, unless you have a welder or have the ability to have someone put something like that together, it's better to buy the prop. And I'm sure that you extrapolate that out for a variety of different things. What I think is very beneficial in regards, to preface the whole commercial made prop, is, you know, doing your research, getting all the data behind those doors or whatever you're buying. For us, we have a commercially made door prop. And the only reason we have it is because we timed it right. We had done the research, we found out how much it cost, had the proposal ready, but you know, it was a money issue. Well, lo and behold, somebody on scene of a fire happened to bust their finger forcing a door without a glove on. It was off for a month, you know, generated lots of overtime. The fire chief was pissed. So I walked up to him one day and said, well, listen, you know, one of my training captains put together a proposal for this door, and within seconds, buy it. So it's just a good matter of striking while the iron's hot. But yeah, there are typically those things you can't do on your own unless you have the capacities, like you have the academy, you have the welder and such. I'm a big fan of those kind of props, but I think you mentioned a second ago the portability aspect too. You know, depending on how large your area of response is, mine's a pretty tight city, so I have I can get people to me if I need to, or centrally located if I put there. But sometimes if you're in a large organization, you know, that cost aspect with the prop comes into play. Like, do you need one? Do you need more? Do you have one that can be traveled around, or do you need people to go to it? So geography comes into play. Yeah, I'm looking forward to going to FDIC again this upcoming April to check out some more props, and then kind of coming back and kind of making the plea for it. But yeah, we have a couple over here that we use the crap out of, quite frankly, and they get their money's worth. And I think that's also important. If you're going to get something, make sure you use it so you can justify to your bosses not only to use it, but then when you come to it again, well, listen, we use this, and obviously we needed to use it. Thus, I'm needing it. When you ask the question for the next prop, you're not asking just to ask. You've used this one, so you probably need this one you're asking for too. So,
yeah, we have. If you guys are familiar with that roof prop that you can tow behind a truck, and you can angle the pitch of the roof. The other thing too, it's got like a rebar cutter. It's got a rebar station. It's got a cut station on the side for metal and that kind of thing. And then of course you've got replaceable wood panels you can use. And like I said, you can pitch it up and down depending on what you want to do. So it's a pretty good prop. We bought it a couple of years ago, probably about 4 years ago now. And we sent it out to all the different, we sent it out to a different place in the city. You know, we went to a firehouse, everybody came there, or we went to a parking lot and everybody could kind of come there. It's here now at the Academy, and guys can come down and load it up. I know we just had some SCBA testing. We've been trying some new SCBAs, and the guys were out there cutting on the roof prop again to kind of mimic the real life stuff out there. That's a nice prop. Again, I'm not sure. I don't remember who makes that thing and what the cost is. But you also then have to have a tow truck or a truck to tow it around. So, they've got their advantages and disadvantages. The nice thing, again, if a battalion identifies a need for that, we can take it up there to them, and then they can use it for, for a week or a day or whatever they want to. It's a really nice one.
Yeah, I know there's, I don't know any departments with that same prop here in Jersey, but I know some training companies in the area that do have them. And they take them to firehouses at night, and they do their thing with them. And I've never heard anything bad about it. And that's cool. The portability, I think, that both of you guys brought up is really important, because again, we don't need to have every prop in every firehouse. I know that's the one thing we've tried to do with our stuff at work, is make it modular, so we can throw it on a trailer, throw it in the back of a pickup truck, and take it to those locations. We bought the same thing. We bought a commercial door prop. I asked for it maybe 5-6 years ago. And we've had that thing all over the place, and it's worked out. The only thing that as these door props have evolved that I think I would have changed, other than the fact that now they have all these different add-ons you can do, like rebar cutting or chain cutting or through the lock stuff, things like that. Those are all awesome to add to a door prop. But I probably would prefer a full-size door. I just think the realism of a full-size door makes that a little bit better in the actual training. You could add locks to it. You could do things to it. And we don't have that. Ours is, I guess you would call it more of a 3/4 size. The nice thing about it, it's modular. We could take it apart. We've put it in burn buildings before. Ours is now red and black because we put it at the top of the stairway of a burn building basement stairs. And we were doing basement fires. So under fire conditions, the guys had to make their way through, stretch down, and do everything. And when we pulled it out and it was still smoking and it was a little twisted, the chief made it clear to us we weren't bringing it back to his firehouse looking like that. So now it's red and black, and it's all straightened out, and it's actually a lot heavier because our welder took good care of it. And for $500 we fixed it. But the modular part of it is probably the coolest piece, that we could take it to these different places. And I know a lot of the cities are doing that. I know some guys that were doing that with FDNY that were out at the Rock. They were taking the trailer with the forcible entry door, that sort of thing. And just like your trailer in DC, that's awesome for roof prop work. So that's.
Did you see the prop that Chief Pegram posted some pictures on Twitter, and he posted the picture of the burn prop, the big tractor trailer burn prop.
Yeah.
That has the the gas-fired props in there. And I know that there's a lot of those out there. I know, again, close to Virginia, close by me, they have a couple in the state. I know I've been out to Colorado. They had some. I know they're all over the place. I know that I saw some in Tennessee. So those are really nice. Again, you know, it's not a real building and it's not real fire, but it gets you the sets and reps, and it gets you some more ability to get to do something.
Tony, is this the one you're talking about that Pegram posted?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, those are big things. You know.
Can I ask you a question? I'm glad you brought that up because that was my choice of questions. We in Fort Lauderdale, like I said before, we don't have a training facility, so we become experts at not only making our own props, but finding ways to make acquired structures work for us. We're experts at acquired structures, and we love the fact that we have that option. A lot of cities don't have that option, but we can become very good at it. That being said, we've looked into one of these. So we have a training tower in Fort Lauderdale, but it's about to come down as a new station, or the station that's coming down. So ISO, I'm sure, is going to tell me, well, now that you don't have a training tower, facility training in your city, so you got to go to a fire academy. So I've been looking at one of these props. So in your opinions, and I'm glad this came up, give me some pros and cons for this, because me, I look at it, I'm like, yeah, I'd like to have it, but I'm sure I'm missing some things. So what are the pros and cons of a big monstrosity like that?
Okay. I can totally jump in on this one because for about the last 10 to 15 years, I've done a lot of delivery training and instructor level training for a couple different manufacturers on these. Here's what I'll tell you about, first off, the manufacturers. They will tell you what you need. Really, we need to tell them what we need, but that's one of the problems that I've seen. However, they definitely have a place in the fire service. I know Chief Pegram about his. When he was working in another department, I actually did training right next door to him out in Xenia, Ohio, and we worked on theirs. There's one that I worked with in Bayou Cane, Louisiana, and last summer, summer of 17, I spent myself and a couple other guys spent a week in Vietnam training Ho Chi Minh City on their two that they bought. So here's the plus, here's the negative in my opinion. The plus is that you can bring it at pretty much anywhere if you have a tractor trailer to pull. Another plus is it's really good to do a lot of little technical work on. Advancing hose into it, feeling a flash over, because you can get some good flashes in there, you can roll it. You can do some good roof ventilation work out of it and make it somewhat realistic. There tends to be an overcrowding issue if you're not careful because they're small. You can only do so much search work in it because they're narrow, but you can do a decent amount of search in it. You can do a second floor search if you get the kind that has the additional pop-up. So that works really well. And the other thing is they're not ultra hard to run. They're very well computerized. If you stay up to date on your maintenance of them and your training on them, they really do. They function real well. One of the problems that we saw, which I don't think you would see in the States, but if anybody is watching this overseas, they may want to consider when they're looking at these. Ours are designed to run off American propane. Well, when you get into, I can tell you in Vietnam and other parts of Asia, the propane is not nearly as clean. And we had problems with burners clogging. So they luckily we had a tech with us. He went in, he cleaned everything, he did everything that needed to be done, made the adjustments. But that was something that I learned about them. So, but here in the States, not a problem. Overseas, that may be something to think about. So those are a few of the things. I think they definitely have their place. I know a lot of the college programs around the nation run them. I believe LSU might run a couple. There's a lot of different places that do, and they've had a lot of good work, and they can take them to the outskirts. For us, we may have firehouses all within 50 miles of ourselves, but when you're looking at a county system or a big regional system, to be able to pull it to this area, the southwest area of this county or parish, and leave it there for a week with instructors who can train all the local departments and then maybe move it to another place, I think that's a huge advantage with this type of thing. So I see that the esteemed editor-in-chief Chief Halton joined us. Thank you so much for being able to hop in. I know your time is always pretty limited and pretty precious as far as you're pulled apart. But so we are happy to have you, Chief.
It's great to see you all. I apologize for being late, and I apologize that I have to run. I just wanted to pop on really quickly to say, obviously, thank you to you all. As always, it's great to see you all on video and listen to your conversations. I think that there's probably no aspect of the fire service, no aspect of really any service profession more important than training and how we conduct that training and how we continue to evolve that training. And this group clearly, that's what you're all devoted to, and it's clearly evident in everything you do. And so I always love hearing you talk, and I apologize that I'm behind the curveball due to 100 things that nobody really cares about but me. So I won't bore anybody with life's a struggle for everybody. You know, everybody always thinks that they're the only one struggling. Well, here's a news flash. No, everybody's struggling. So it's so awesome that you guys take the time away from your other struggles to share, you know, the things that you're doing that are really successful and they're moving things forward. And obviously, training props are a phenomenal piece of the puzzle, right? How do we construct them? How do we use them? Are they achieving the goal that we want them to achieve? Are we creating an environment that moves the cognitive, right? Because you have that narrative memory, and you also have that procedural memory. And procedural memory, you know, is what kicks in when you walk and talk and breathe, and you know, things you don't have to think about to do. But that narrative memory is when you have to, you know, kind of make decisions and then think it through, right? So it's kind of an interesting, you know, training is always that juncture, right? How do you put those two pieces of memory together and help people move forward? And I was just reading a great piece that I just got from my friends from the Advanced Center for Hindsight Bias. How do you like that? It's a real group. It's fantastic. A guy named Dan Ariely runs it. He's the head of the behavioral economics division at Duke. And they had a great piece today on literary research on habit and what habit means. And people use that word a lot, right? Like, you know, if you do this every day, you know, for 30 days, then you'll always be doing it. Well, okay. Yeah, good luck with that. So that they did this really in-depth piece on how, you know, what the literature out there says, and great read. And, I'll send it to you also. You guys would gobble it up. Good stuff. But I also just want to jump on really quickly. I've got to run, but I wanted to remind everybody that the Father Christmas look here is because it's Men's Health Month, and our industry is predominantly male. And as a warning or an admonition or a request or a favor, if you're listening to this and you haven't had your colonoscopy recently, if you haven't had your PSA checked, if you haven't had a breast exam or testicular exam, if you haven't checked your cardiovascular stuff, if you don't know what your cholesterol levels are, pick one of those things and go do it. You know, today you can send in a sample in a box. I don't want to be the guy at the other end. I don't want to be the FedEx guy delivering those, but there's somewhere in the world there's a FedEx driver who that's on his route. But that's how easy it is today, and it's hugely important. My son said it best. My son Dean, I'll give him credit. He said, "Self-preservation is its own reward." It's a Navy slogan. So you know, when you think about it, it goes back to the Dirty Jobs fellow said it best when he was doing his Safety Third video. He said, "No one really cares about you like you do, so act like it." You know, it's okay to put yourself first when you're doing dangerous and crazy stuff. So please, please, please remember it's Men's Health Month. Also, I'll be hanging out with our friends at Affordable Drill Towers, talk about props. Mike Dugan, myself, Mike from Houston, great guy, Rescue 2 guy down there in Houston. Dave Gallagher, Ray McCormick. We'll all be down in Houston Thursday and Friday. We'll be live Friday from a training session we're doing, where we'll show you some of the evolutions and some trips and techniques about balcony rescue, below grade rescue, standpipe, sprinklers, rappelling. We've got a really cool little program. So it's going to be a live on the road with my good friends. We'll be down in Houston at Affordable Drill Tower site. And so please join us Friday at this time. should be a fantastic day. And we'll be talking a lot about props, right? And how important they are, and how you can improvise, devise, create. The only limits are your imagination. I mean, duh, right? And energy. We all, not everything has to be. You don't need a room with the back end of a Suburban and 5 screens and 30 radios and 8 role players and and Lucasfilms producing your stuff. Man, sometimes all you need is a chalkboard and some interest, and away you go, right? Because the mind creates its own images. I mean, you don't have to help the mind create images. If you don't believe me, think about your life, especially males between 13 and 18. Enough said. So your imagination runs wild, right? I remember one time I saw, I'll give Aaron up. I saw Aaron reading a Playboy magazine, and I said, Aaron, you're looking at places you'll never go and thinking about things you'll never do. So just stop it. But I'm just kidding. So it's a terrible joke, but that's what I'm known for. So I love you guys. I apologize. I do need to run to take care of some things that I'm just behind the curve on, for reasons I'd rather not disclose. But I'm inundated at the moment. But I wanted to say how much I appreciated you all. Please, 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 do something for Men's Health Month for yourself. If for nobody else, for yourself. Somebody out there loves each and every one of us. And if nobody else, I love you. So, and it can be as simple as going to see the dentist, right? Your oral health is a big deal. Take care of every aspect, your eyesight, your oral health, your mental health, all of it. It's Health Month. Think about it. Do something. Your hearing, whatever you might be having an issue with, do something. Remember to sign up for EMS today. Remember to sign up for FDIC. We're already being swamped with, registrations, and remember that like 19,000 people pre-registered. So, when you're going to look for things, there's already 20,000 of your pals coming. So you're already 20,001. Pre-registration is the way to go. I mean, it really is. And duh. I have very little to do with the event. I'm just a circus performer. And so, please sign up. EMS Today, Inner Harbor, incredible amount of fire-based EMS that's going to be conducted there. Tremendously important. If you're a training officer and you're looking for a place to send your folks to get the latest in not only the clinical, the tactical, the applicational, the managerial, every aspect of it, EMS Today. Go take a look at that program. It is phenomenal. Everybody from the finest doctors in America to guys like me and Rick George and Gordon Graham. I mean, so you've got literally the most incredible spectrum of training available. Birdman, Ryan Parrott, will be giving a great speech on Thursday. Tremendous events lined up. EMS Today, probably the value of this thing. You look at the group pricing, you can send your folks to EMS Today for money you wouldn't believe. You start sending people in groups of I think it starts at 10, but or maybe 5, but it gets down to $150 a person. So it's amazingly affordable. It's amazingly accessible. And I'll quit rambling on. I love you. Finish your talk. And I apologize for just jumping in with a commercial advertisement. But
it's perfect. It's perfect.
It's my job.
That's right. Well, Chief, it's funny you say that, and thanks for jumping in, and hope all is well and goes well. And again, the struggles are real. We all have them. I've been through mine in the last week again too. So it's what it is. But we stick together, and that's part of the brotherhood. So
that's the key. Aaron, you just said it. There's a wonderful writer named Dr. Joyner. We should all be reading him, and he talks about the fire service, and he talks about our sense of belonging. And that's what makes us strong. It's not being strong as an individual. It's being strong because Art de Peek said it best. He said, 4 brave men will not dare attack a lion, but 4 less brave who know one another well, therefore assured of mutual aid, will attack resolutely. And so what he meant was, man, you're going to go through stuff that's terrifying, but we want to go through it with you. So don't hesitate to reach out when you know, heck, I wake up scared, you know, and I go to sleep scared. That's why you pray in the morning and you pray at night, and in between, you just do what you got to do. You show up, and as long as you show up, we'll show up with you, and that's all I got to say about that. I love you.
Well, it's funny you say that, because right here is the ad out of our union paper for the Captain Bushio physical in New Jersey. And I pulled it out because I said, man, I got to do something, and it's time to start some things over. There it is. So that phone call is getting made this week. I know Steve's got to leave real quick. You got one last thing to say, Steve, or you're out?
I got to get out to a meeting with the fire chief, but once again, it was great talking with you guys, and especially about something that we're also passionate about. It's one of those things that with the props, whether you're buying them commercially or you get them made at home, it's especially the ones you get to make at home, doing that good needs assessment to see what you need in your hometown definitely reflects on what you're going to be producing, and some of those props we talked about kind of answer that need. But it definitely gives us also a chance to be creative, work as a group together, coming up with these ideas, empowering your crews. That's a huge one right now. One thing I did not show, and it's the last little plug I'll show, one of our crews, we do the RIT competition in January. And our crews right here, I don't know if that's visible right there, have literally recreated that RIT prop they use in Daytona for here in Fort Lauderdale to use. So not only was it a group effort, those guys did amazing, just coming together, building it by themselves, in their own time, on their own dollar. We did pitch in a while afterwards to help them out with it, but it was a group effort. It was a bonding event. And now they have this prop that they can use not only for them to prep for the competition, but internally for us to use for training. That's what we intend to do starting in January, is do RIT training using that prop. So it's definitely an opportunity as well.
Awesome. Well, until next month, it's great seeing you, and thanks, Steve. Well, Tony, it's you and me, man. One of the things that Brad had talked about right before he was jumping off was what would be a wish list? Is there this wish list that we probably should be developing in our mind? And I guess, how would we formulate that wish list? And how do we move forward to try and obtain it, or at least lay the things in motion? So what do you think, Tony? Where would that start with DC and a major metro?
Well, we currently use a couple of flashover props, right? Like the phase 1, phase 2, and so on. And those are great. Those are great things. But one thing that I think that we really need, and we're not getting it really in our burn building, is a hallway. We need a long hallway and something that's going to generate nasty smoke over our head. So a vent limited hallway prop, so we can really replicate what we're seeing on the fire ground. Class A, again, not a propane. I mean, those are good for sets and reps and things like that. But that's what we need. That's the pipe dream. I see it, I see it in the future. I don't know how long it's going to take, but that's what we need. Our burn building that we have, it's a great burn building. Class A, again, we can get that, but it's tough to really replicate that vent limited fire that we're seeing, and in order to get a hallway so we can push down and get that nasty smoke over our head, so we can practice putting water on smoke, practice making that push and get down. So that's my goal, my wish list.
Well, it makes total sense, and it kind of goes with some of the drills that I'm seeing that are coming back out now. Line advancement, long hallways, taking fire as you're going down the hall, things like that. That totally makes sense. And you're right, it is probably something that we've been lacking. As you were saying that, I'm thinking about our burn building in Mercer County that I helped run for years, and now that I go to with my company when we go up to do our training. And yeah, the hallways we have, there is nothing vent limited. It's pretty wide open, even though they built some things to change it up. it doesn't give us that's not even close to what we would see in reality, and that's an issue. That's a really good point for guys to take some notes on. So excellent.
Something else that we've added, and I'd be remiss, right, if we didn't talk about the 80% of our job. We have a prop lab for EMS runs. We have those dummies that talk back, that give you symptoms, and again, as close to the real thing as possible.
Right.
They can get these things to breathe and move and talk and yell and that kind of thing. So that's an added bonus to our EMS training, because a lot of times you got to wait for a run, wait for an incident to see certain symptoms out there. We can replicate it in our lab. That's pretty good. Another thing too, one more thing we're working on, that command training center with the simulations.
Yeah.
Again, not necessarily a prop, but it's not the real thing, and we're trying to replicate it. So I guess it is a prop.
Yeah.
And that's also coming too.
Very cool. Well, and I think, wish list for me, and I looked at this and I was thinking to myself, our academy has done pretty good. They've gotten a new tanker. They got a new car fire prop. They got some other stuff that every time I've used it, I thought it was pretty cool, and it's given my guys something good. But what else is there? What else is there? And one of the things that this may be way off topic and something that could be better utilized in a health and safety Google Hangout or something. But one of the things that I've seen, and I saw a fellow recently who reported that he was pretty sick from using fake smoke. And he had some respiratory issues with it, put him in a hospital, put him down. And this is a guy who sounds, everything I know about him, top shelf guy, and does a lot of training around the country and with his department. And that's a concern. So a wish list to me, I was just approached by somebody who says that they have stuff that they can alleviate this. And I can tell you at FDIC, I'm going to be looking at their stuff really closely, because I've been right on that cusp at times where I got done, especially RIT training, when we're not doing it under fire, but we want smoke conditions. And I've come home from the class coughing and going, damn, were we in that dusty a building? And then I thought, no, it might be some of the products we use could be irritating us a little bit. So that kind of thing even might be on a wish list for a training officer to take a look at when they go out to Indy or go to the shows or just, Googling things. So that's even little things that you don't think of. And it may not be this $1 million training facility. It may be a $1,000 smoke machine and some fluid, or it may be, something that we do in the building just to provide something that's more vent limited, or that allows us to open things up faster. Since we're talking about a lot of our burn buildings were built 80s, 90s, early 2000s, before we had the studies, before we had, a little more details. So maybe those are things that we have to look at, just little bits of pieces that will alter what we do to meet what we're doing now, if that makes sense.
I mean, again, to work on getting it as real as possible, right? I mean, that's what we got to somehow mimic what they're seeing out in the street, so we can get these guys sets and reps and comfortable with what they're going to do. So, the props are great. Acquired structures, those would be really nice. Again, that may be on the wish list as more acquired structures. We just had a bunch here in the city. It was a neighborhood they were tearing down, and they let us come in. And again, they probably would have let us do whatever we wanted to, but unfortunately, rules are such that we couldn't do live fire and stuff like that. But we were able to do some of those things that you only do on real incidents. We can't even do some of that master stream work down here, at our burn building, but we could do it at these acquired structures. That was really good. And again, lots and lots of roofs we could cut. So those are good. And if you can replicate that with a prop, that's good too. One prop we've been working with recently was maybe you've seen the IAFF have that the Fireground Survival Program.
Yeah.
Fairfax County around us had one of the IAFF's props. We were able to get that over here so we could do some of that escape training. We don't have a real good window for bailout, so that trailer, that little 26-foot trailer's got a pop-up window on the top. It's got a railing again so nobody falls off. But it's got a ladder to get to the top, and then it's got that window so we can do ladder slides. We can do a rope slide, those kinds of things out of it, and a really nice prop, really good. Again, the potential's there for us to take that around the city, so we can refresh our members on all those skills. So that's another one that I wanted to mention.
That's excellent. Yeah, and that's just it. Utilizing the resources we have. Before we close it out, I guess I'll throw one more thing up about that wish list idea, and that's that guys want buy-in. There's all these books out there about we want, it's our ship. It's not just the chief's ship or whoever's. It's our ship. So the guys want buy-in. We want to give them that empowerment. One of the things that's easy to do in a fire department is reach out to the guys, reach out to the battalions, reach out to the individual firefighters. What are we missing that you think we need? Put together a little survey monkey or whatever it may be. And you might find guys who aren't real outgoing and saying and beating on the chief's door and on his desk saying, I want this, I want this, I want this. Maybe the guy who comes up with a really cool idea and sees, hey, we could use this and maybe I can build this for you. But they just need that little push, that little bit of empowerment to say, hey, I could do this for you. And that's one of those things that in our department, sometimes we're good at it, sometimes we suck at it, just like everybody else, and sometimes we get narrow-minded. But I think it works, and I think that's something to think about. So before we close out, it's down to me and Tony. I'm glad that we were both able to be on since Steve had technical difficulties and Chief Shaw had a meeting and Brad was running shots. Yeah,
it's all a bunch of excuses.
Yeah,
only the strong survive.
That's right. We're here. We first in, last out. So, any closing statements, Tom?
No, thanks again, man. Thanks. Good stuff. Hopefully, we'll see you next month at the same time.
Absolutely. Well, folks, and that closes us out for today. I want to thank everybody for tuning in and really appreciate that you support these Google Hangouts. And there's so many good ones to check out all the time. It's not just ours, but ours is kind of special to us. And want to thank Fire Engineering and Clarion and FDIC for really giving us such a great opportunity. Chief Halton and everybody for giving us this opportunity to bring to you some ideas and ideas from all sizes of departments, all walks of life, and stuff that we've experienced in our careers. And we look forward to seeing you next month. And until then, be safe and be well. All right. Take care, everybody.